Hi guys, welcome back to another For Those Who Code video. This channel is where we discuss and learn new skills around the topics of design and development. If you want to grow your skills and learn new things that are coming up, please subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. This really helps me to create more content. In this video, we'll be learning about how we can work around with Cloudflare Workers inside of Cloudflare. We will touch into some introductory topics on how we can get started with Cloudflare Workers. And Cloudflare Workers specifically runs on the Cloudflare's global cloud edge networks, which opens up the external link in over 200 cities around the world. And we can deploy our code anywhere around the world, geographically distributed, which executes on the edge. To create our first the Cloudflare Workers or just workers from scratch, you first need to install Wrangler CLI. So with the command npm install -g Wrangler, and I personally have already installed this, so I will just skip this command. After installing this Wrangler as a global flag with -g, we can head into our terminal and type in Wrangler generate and our worker name, Wrangler generate, and we call it demo worker, and hit on enter. So after this, we can see our Wrangler project has been created. So we can just go into this demo project and open up in Visual Studio Code. So let's first take a look at what our folder and file structures look like. First, let's go into our index.js file. So inside of our index file, we can see we have something called add event listener. So let's start with the add event listener first, which is kind of similar that we have in the browsers, which is looking and listening for some certain kind of events. In this case, we have a fetch event, and it's listening for the fetch event, which responds with the callback function, which is named event.response with, and we are passing a function here, and that particular function is invoked here, which takes in parameter as a request, and later on we are returning a new response with the string hello world, which is a content type of a text plain. This looks pretty much slick so far, and let's go ahead and run this inside of our local machine. So there are a couple of commands that you need to know in order to get started with Wrangler locally. So I'll head into the docs, and inside the docs we have a couple of things called Wrangler, and inside commands then we can find a couple of mostly all the commands that you need to know to get started with a Wrangler. But I will send a screenshot right here, the most used commands inside of Wrangler, and these are all the commands that are mostly used while working with Wrangler CLI. So let's move ahead and spin up this serverless worker inside of our local machine, Wrangler dev. And after that's done, it should spit up a port and a URL for us. Let's click on this URL, and after clicking on that particular URL, we can see our hello world has been console or printed out in the screen. So which is great. And let's go back, and what we can do here is we can like serve some HTML files inside of our workers. So to serve HTML files inside of our workers, there are a couple of ways, but I just want to take the most fastest way, which is creating a template and call it like it's a constant, which holds some HTML tags. And I'll bring in some HTML tags, which I have already prepared, and I just didn't want to type in. Let's say hello worker, and we want to add an exclamation sign there. So we'll copy that particular stuff and paste it right here. And what we want to do is we just don't want to serve content type as a text plain, but rather than as text HTML. And also character set of UDF -8. Yeah, let's hit on save, and let's take a look at the browser. And if we hit and refresh, we must see our HTML template has been printed out with hello worker, which is great. But the thing is that I don't specifically want to create constant inside this particular file. So I'll just remove this stuff and probably just add an import there. I'll just create a file and call it templates, and inside there we can add a new file and call it home, probably home.js, and that home.js is just specifically this, which is home, and hello worker, and call it home. So and also don't forget to export the constant that we defined there. Export sorry, not a constant but a default, and we have home there. So after that's done, let's go ahead and save it, and we will import that particular stuff. Import home from templates, and we have home.js, and that home can be accessed here now, and which should work as a similar way before, which is hello worker, but it didn't spit it out home. Probably, I don't know why. Let's take a look at this. It currently says it cannot import or use import statement outside of a module. So probably we should tweak things up inside of our wrangler.toml file, where we have type JavaScript. We can turn this into Webpack. So and we will touch into some topics of Webpack later on. Probably it added some packages. And if we take a look at the browser now, we should see hello worker home, which is great. So that's what we wanted, and let's move ahead and build up our workers. So the next step is working on how we can work around with some runtime APIs inside of our workers. So to get started with some runtime APIs inside of Worker, I want to take you to the official documentation where we have all the learning resources that we could find, and specifically let's go into the request runtime APIs. So inside of our request runtime APIs, there are a couple of really good API that we could access here and fiddle around with Cloudflare Workers. And the specific API that we are interested in currently is the CF. And it's an object which contains the property about the incoming request provided by Cloudflare's edge network, which is great. So if we scroll down a little bit, and we can see some of the probably it's here, some of the incoming request CF properties, and there are awesome properties that we could access here. For example, we could access the city where the request is being made from, the continent, latitude, longitude, region, and all the stuff, even the time zone. So let's leverage the use of these properties and methods inside of our workers. So to get started with it, probably we can, first of all, let's take a look into how it looks, how the CF properties look in the console. So let's write console.log and let's write request.cf and hit on save, and we should see something happening here. If not, we will just hit a refresh and take a look that we have the CF properties that is spit out in the console, which is they have a longitude, latitude, TLS cipher, continent, AS, which is Asia, which is really interesting. So what do we want to do here is probably we will just comment this one out, and we want to introduce good templating style for our workers, and that's by using a Webpack. Let's head into the documentation, and we can see with Webpack, and Wrangler allows us to develop modern ES6 application that supports for modules, and this is possibly because of Wrangler's Webpack integration. So we can make the use of Webpack inside of our Wrangler files, inside of our worker files. Basically, why we want to use Webpack, because we cannot access any constants inside of our home.js right here, because we haven't really passed any constant. For example, let's create a constant and call it val, and it's probably just a value, and we want to pass this particular val inside of our home here, which is val, and receive that particular stuff inside of here, which is val. And let's try to print out this val right in here. So I will just add the val here and also save there. And if we hit on refresh, which says a value, which is fine. But what if we want to access and pass in the request object that we have, for example, request.cf. Let's try to write in request there, and inside request we can access request.cf, and inside there we have request.cf dot probably longitude, and you can see that we have a couple of errors because we are accessing the request object passing in from the here. So and it says that we need a webpack configuration, and specifically HTML webpack loader. That's fine. Let's go ahead and add a webpack config file. So inside here, let's create a new file and call it webpack.config.js. So inside of that configuration file, what we want to do is we want to just add in the config file. So basically we want to target, the target should be web worker, which is most important thing. And also we have added the section here, which is modal, and inside there we have HTML loader, which is a loader, basically a kind of plugin inside of Webpack that we must add to load up HTMLs properly. So but this is not done because we have not installed HTML loader. So let's go ahead and install HTML loader with npm I HTML loader. Probably I forgot to add this, so this should be a dev dependency because I most of the time forget that stuff. So let's remove that and add it in the dev dependency, and also do npm I to install all the packages once again. After that's done, we can hit save and take a look at the browser. I mean at the browser with Wrangler, not login but Wrangler dev. Probably it says that we haven't configured it properly. I've made a small mistake here, so it should be like inside of the entry file should be not in the root but inside of src. So I'll just bring in src folder and move our index.js inside of src. So that would be pretty fine. And let's try to do Wrangler div once again. So probably we forget to add like webpack config inside of our here, which is wrangler.toml file, and we also haven't added account ID. Basically, account ID is needed if we are trying to deploy our workers in Cloudflare, but we'll get that later on. We have mistaken the path, so I'll just add in which is templates. Probably it's inside of templates and home. So let's hit on save, and if we take a look in the browser now, running it locally, then we should see there are no loaders for. Let's also use this just as cf, and we can write in cf.latitude, and let's try with this change. And let's also pass in request.cf right in here, so that we could receive cf properties right here. So if we take into look at the browser, we can see the longitude has been I mean it's latitude, it's in the browser, which is great. So we can build on top of this. Let's add a few tweaks to our home.js. So inside of our home.js, what we want to do is specifically we want to add a heading tag for now. So let's call it h1, and let's close this h1, and inside this h1 specifically what we want to do is we want to add, hey, you are from, and we want to access the CF properties that we passed in, which is just an object full of properties, and we specifically want to access the country, which is which country is the serverless function is being called from. So which is and we also want to access the city. For example, cf.city. Hey, you are from blah 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 country, which is das city, and with the latitude, probably it's outside the bracket, latitude and longitude of, and we want to access that particular CF property right in here. So and let's remove this paragraph tag for now. Our template is printing the country, the city, the latitude and longitude where the serverless function is being called from. And I want to like deploy this particular piece of serverless function that we created. So let's stop this, and what we want to do is we want to log in to Cloudflare using Wrangler. So let's write Wrangler login, and let's open up it in the browser with just Y. And after clicking on it, then we can see a consent application, and our application is good to go after clicking on allow. All right, so we have the access, and the next command that we could use is we could use Wrangler who am I, and we can see our account credentials here. So let's go ahead and copy this account ID, and inside of our Wrangler toml file, inside their account ID, we want to paste that particular account ID. And it's okay to expose this account ID in public as per the documentations and resources, but it's fine. We need this account ID because we want to deploy our serverless function to Cloudflare. So let's run Wrangler publish, and it spits out this particular URL. Let's go ahead and click it and click on open. And as you can see, here you are from NL, which is Netherlands, which is undefined latitude and longitude of blah blah and blah blah, which is fine, but which is undefined, which is cf.cd. Probably we don't have that cf.cd. Let's take a look into the documentation of runtime APIs and request, and go to cd. We do have a cd, but it don't have a cd. cf.cd, sorry, cf.cd. But anyway, this is how it looks like currently. Probably it's the cd is not available. So if we take a look here, we can see all the details that has been printed out. So what can we do? We can further on improve our application. For example, we can add p tag for now. Let's add a p tag, and inside this p tag, what we want to do is we want to conditionally render things out. For example, let's access some properties. For example, cf.country. Country is Netherlands, which is just NL. And if that's the case, then we want to print out this particular piece of string, which is you are from Netherlands, Netherlands. Probably this is there, and if it's not, you are not from Netherlands, which is great. So if we hit on save and take a look at this in the browser, let's publish this once again, and if we hit on save, then we can see that you are from Netherlands, because I'm using a VPN which is somewhere around Netherlands. So which is great. This is how we could add some conditional logic inside of our templates using the CF properties available to us, which is great. Now let's move on to our like building up serverless applications or serverless function. And what if we want to like make a third-party API calls inside of our functions? Well, we can definitely make the use of third-party API calls inside of our serverless function. To get that into working, for example, we want to randomly access some cryptocurrencies in the market out there. So I'll just remove this for now, and let's go ahead and probably I'll just bring in something which is the API keys that I've accessed from the Rapid API, because we are accessing some crypto coins data from our Rapid API. So these are just the options header, and we'll create a constant, and that particular constant can be called get all coins. Make the use of fetch API, and it's a synchronous function. It awaits for this promise to be resolved after the fetch, and the options are these options that are passed to the header, and after it resolves, we are turning it into a JSON, and we can access get all coins inside of our handle request right in here. So let's create a constant, call it coin or coin data, and inside there we want to await for get all coins and get the data. So let's access this get all coins inside of our files here. So we just add json.stringify, and let's turn this coin data into some string format, and we want to change the content type to application JSON and see that in action in the browser. So let's hit on save, and let's do Wrangler. It's spelled out wrong. Wrangler dev to see that in the browsers locally. So let's hit on refresh, and as you can see, we have like called API calls inside of our serverless function, making third-party API calls inside of serverless function, and we are accessing the data of cryptocurrency, which is great. So now let's learn about how we can like hide away the API keys that we have used right in here. We can obviously hide away the API keys that we are using in here. It can be achieved with setting the environment variables. For example, let's go to system environment variables probably, and we can see that how we can set up our infiles. And we can set up our infiles like this, but what we are going to do is we are going to set our secrets with the command Wrangler secret, and probably let's close this one out, and I'll just add Wrangler secret, probably a Wrangler secret, and copy in the secret that we have. Let's call it API key, Wrangler put secret, and that API key can be this. So let's go ahead and use that, creating a secret. So we can make the use of this particular thing, which is the API key. So hit on save, and let's like publish this workers publish. Wrangler secret put and Wrangler dev. And as you can see, our application is behaving the same way that we did before when we added the API key, and when we set the API key with the command Wrangler secret put and this API key, and it behaves the same. Let's go ahead and add some couple of templates inside of our files here. And we do have a home.js, which is great. Now we also want to add in another file, which is probably not found. Okay, so let's add a new file and call it notfound.js, and probably we could bring in some thing that we have already written. So it's not found, it's home, which is we have two different templates. So how are we going to handle two different templates inside of our serverless function? So basically what we could do is we could get rid of these options that we defined before, and also we don't want to call our third-party serverless, third-party APIs, and we also don't want to get the coin data. This could be achieved in a couple of ways, and I will just implement the simplest way of doing things out. So for example, we just import everything from the templates, which is the home and the not found, which is these two files. Now we could create a constant and call it path name, and that path name could be a new URL, which could be accessed from request.url, and that's a property that we could access from the request object, and we could constantly render things out. For example, if we are or if the path name is it's home, if the path name is like home, then we could return something. For example, we could return a new response and call it home, and inside that home we are passing the request.cf properties, which we did before, and we are, if that's the home, that's fine. If that's not the home, then what we want to do is we want to return a new response of not found, and that's a content type of not application JSON, but rather it's text HTML, and we also want to paste in this text HTML right in there. So with this in place, we have done a couple of improvements and added a simple routing to our application, and also let's add in some status. And let's hit on save, and it had detected changes. It's listening for changes. And as you can see, we have implemented some kind of basic routing for our page, because we are not specifically going to the home page. But if we had home there, then we can see here you are from Netherlands, latitude, longitude, and you are from Netherlands, which is great. So if you're pretty much interested towards like improving things out, you could definitely make the use of the official router. For example, worker template router, and it has implemented this particular package inside of our serverless function. So guys, in this video we learned some introductory topics around Cloudflare Workers and getting our hands dirty with the serverless function in the edge. But we just scratched the surface, and there are loads of possibility with Cloudflare Workers, and you can see the examples and also the tutorial files here, and how we could leverage and how powerful is the Cloudflare serverless function. And there are a lot of examples, like building a QR code generator, and even probably a real-time chat application, and a lot more, a Slack bot, whatnot. So I really recommend you to take a reference to the documentation provided there, and I hope you learned something new from this video. If you want to learn more around the topics of design and development, please subscribe for more videos just like this. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. This really helps me to create more content. Thanks a lot, guys. See you in the next one.